I'm glad you're here. Our vocabulary word this week is numerology. The OED, or Oxford English Dictionary, tells us that numerology is divination by numbers, the study of the occult or hidden meanings of numbers. The word numerology has really been around in English for only about 100 years or so. Prior to then, the word used for this practice was arithmancy. So, word nerd time. Numerology has at its root numeros, which is Latin. And then there's that little logi stuck on the end there from Greek. And today we use that to mean study of, like biology, geology, astrology. You get my drift. So wouldn't numerology really just be math? Ask that to a math teacher. And why do we say numbers and not numers? And why don't we say numberology? Language is weird. Arithmancy, on the other hand, is all Greek. Arithmos is Greek for number, and that's where we get arithmetic. And that mancy stuck right there on the end means oracle or divination. We see that show up in things like cartomancy, tasseomancy, alluromancy, zygomancy, all of which are methods of performing divination. It's fun to realize also that mancy is related to the Greek word mantis, which was used to refer once to one being touched by divine madness. Crazy, huh? A quick internet search will give you all kinds of sites which will do numerological things with your name, your birth date, and I'm sure other aspects of your life. And those sites will provide you with all kinds of interesting facts about you and your life as well. I'm not a fan of those sites. Humans and the lives we lead are far too complex to be reducible to single digits and canned descriptors. But that's just my opinion. If you find value and relevance for yourself in this way, and if it helps you be a better human, then go for it. Numerology, though, in the tarot is not about life numbers or destiny numbers and things like that. Numerology in the tarot, as I see it, is about helping us find connections between the cards, connections to the story of our lives, and can help us gain a bit more understanding about ourselves and our experiences. Our card of the week is the Four of Swords and was suggested by my friend Alice. Thanks, Alice. When thinking about the numbered minor arcana cards, the aces through tens, we need to consider the number, the suit, and the imagery, and not necessarily in that order. Swords are associated with the element of air in most decks, and not all decks use swords as the symbol for air. The Wildwood Tarot uses arrows. Some decks use knives. In the Witch's Tarot by Ellen Cannon Reed, which is currently out of print, swords are associated with fire. Today, though, I'm going to be using the traditional swords equal air approach. In the Witch's Pyramid, an aphorism for air is to know. Air is traditionally associated with knowledge, ideas, communication, and other such things which compose our mental lives. Memory lives in air, and our sense of smell is also associated with air. The human sense of smell is more strongly associated with memories than any of our other senses. So this association makes some sense, right? And it makes sense, too, that incense is associated with air, because of the smell thing. Oh, and smoke is kind of air-like, right? There's that, too. Discernment is another of the air qualities. Seeing things clearly, analyzing them well, all air things. And it seems to me that a sword is a good symbol for this. Discernment is sort of cutting through the BS after all. I associate air with clarity, discernment, illumination, and sympathy. If I have to dissect it into pieces, that is. You may be wondering, what does sympathy have to do with air? Well, I see it like this. Empathy is a water thing. I feel what you feel. And sympathy, on the other hand, to me is I understand what you feel. And that's an air thing. Now, if you go look this up on the inner tubes, you'll find sites that kind of Hint that I've got it backwards. Go with what works for you. I define it like this because of my understanding of empathy in the energetic and witchy kind of way. I see the number 4 in the tarot as related to stability, solidity, and the realization of things becoming real, whatever that means. In the Qabalah, the number 4 is associated with the Sephiroth Chesed and is called mercy. In the Chicken Qabalah by Milo DuQuette, the author describes Chesed as organized and authoritative. Here in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, we see a figure lying in repose. Is he taking himself a nap? Is he dead? One thing is apparent to me. This card doesn't carry the same heavy kind of energy as many of the other swords do. Traditionally, this is a card concerning rest, contemplation, and respite. But in this card, there may be an added layer of meaning. You see, this card isn't necessarily a dude taking a nap. This is dude's tomb. Effigy tombs, sort of fancy coffins with sculpted representations of the tomb's resident, have been around for a while now across diverse cultures, and including Egyptian and Etruscan and in medieval Europe. Here's an example from Arundel Castle, West Sussex. It's the monument of John FitzAlan, Earl of Arundel, and there's a second tier on this one too. Kind of creepy, huh? Recognizing, at least in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, that this is a tomb can bring a new layer of swordiness to the card. Yeah, that's a word. Swordiness. Sure, there's that rest aspect, but it's more like rest in peace. And when we look at the stained glass window up in that corner up there, we'll see this. I've highlighted it a bit for you. Pax, Latin for peace. It's hiding there in the halo of the figure on the left who's reaching out to that figure on the right. Is this a blessing of a child? Or is that right-hand figure the knight we see on the tomb kneeling? Could it be that this blessing is being bestowed on our knight now at rest? All of this talk of tombs and whatnot doesn't preclude a more pleasant and less permanent kind of rest, a simple nap. I know that when I've been through the ringer, a good nap is nothing short of mercy itself. Other things that this card can point to are meditation, prayer, and contemplation, all of which are rather air-like in keeping with the element of the suit. And what if the 3 swords we see hanging on the wall there are the swords we saw in the 3 of Swords? Our resting knight has passed the troubles indicated in that card and is recovering. And that lone sword to his side, that's the sword from the ace, the ready source of thought itself. If we consider the cards not only singly as themselves, but as part of a story, in this case the story of air, added layers of meaning might appear. Here in the Urban Tarot, the 4 of Swords is meant to suggest the General Assembly Hall at the UN headquarters. This is a Toth-style deck, and Crowley titled the 4 of Swords Truce. To me, a truce, while a kind of peace, feels a bit more temporary. And I get that impression from the swords on the card. See how they're pointed inward, tip to tip? To me, it looks like 4 folks facing one another just kind of set down their swords, kind of like they made a truce. But perhaps they could pick them up at any time. One of the associations of air is communication, and that comes across in the UN imagery here as well. An organization founded, at least in ideal, on the principle of communication. In this card, the association with rest and repose is abstracted somewhat. Truce bears this out for me, but there's still a sense of tension in that, which we might expect from the suit of swords. In this card, from the Druidcraft Tarot, I don't get the sense of rest we might see elsewhere, but it surely carries the feeling of contemplation, or at least intense thought. I would go so far as to say he's struggling with something. Perhaps he's gone through a series of thoughts, working things out, and it's represented by the swords. And now he's on to one more. In the background, we have a colorful sunset, which could signify endings. Or maybe it's a colorful sunrise, and he's been up all night thinking things. This card definitely doesn't holler rest at me. In the Witch's Tarot by Ellen Dugan, we get another look at the idea of rest and recovery. In this case, it's not the card of resting itself. It's more a card of, you look tired. Check out this lady here. She does look tired, doesn't she? In her description of the card, Dugan mentions the pussy willow and the ivy in the card, both of which are associated with healing and recovery. I imagine that this lady has had a long day of dealing with tasks represented by those swords, and here she is at the end of the day, ready for a rest. In this Four of Swords from the Pulp Tarot, we get back somewhat to the resting idea we saw in the first Rider-Waite-Smith deck, only with a comfy bed and fewer tombs. Even as simple as this imagery may seem, there are some hidden gems in here. Above the bed is a picture of a mother and child. Imagine that this is a picture of our sleeping friend as a child with her own mother. Memory is an air thing, after all, and memories can bring both joy and sadness. And look at that unoccupied pillow next to her. Looks to me like somebody's been laying their head there, but now they've gone. And why would that be? What has happened? I might ask, too, about the arrangement of the swords. There's one there on the bed, much like the one we saw in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. But the other three are arranged as 2 and 1. And how might you interpret that? Was there some meaning? Or was it simply the artist using the space in the image? So I'm going to take a stab at an idea or two that I might have. Sometimes the imagery of our cards is intentional by the designer, artist, or both. Remember that Pax thingy we saw from the Rider-Waite-Smith card? Sometimes the details that catch our eye are not there by intent and have no intended meaning. But just because the detail wasn't intended to have meaning doesn't mean that it can't have meaning for you as a reader. And it's just as likely to have meaning today and not tomorrow. Now, I'm not much of an art historian, nor an artist for that matter. But looking at the cards as art can allow us to get into the images and see possible interpretations which might not be in the books, but might provide us more valuable information for our seekers and for ourselves. And this is why I suggest studying not only tarot books, but also history and psychology, art, literature. It can be very valuable to a reader to take a holistic approach when studying the tarot. Now, there are lots of ways for folks to rest, find peace, contemplate life, and to recover from their struggles and troubles. We've explored a few of those here today with the Four of Swords. That was a great suggestion. Thanks again, Alice. And thank you for spending some time here with me today. If you've enjoyed your time, please like, subscribe, share, comment. I'm Skaji. Safe journeys.